talk about underrated. Let me ask you something. Have you ever played a game that has had an everlasting impact on you? A game that no one else seems to know about, but you know they would absolutely love it if they tried? That's Owlboy for me. Every time I raise it, the person asks, "What's that?" And then it's immediately followed with, "Holy shit, this is incredible," when they actually play it. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. This is my non-spoiler review for Owlboy. If you do like the video, please consider liking the video and leaving a comment down below. It definitely helps out the channel, and all my social links are in the description below. Let's get into my review of Owlboy for the PC, starting with the story. So Owlboy is a 2D platforming adventure game developed by D-Pad Studio. You play as Otis. Otis is a young boy slash owl, or Owlboy if you will, and he was born mute. Throughout the village of Valley, which is where you reside, you are considered an unworthy successor to the owl's heritage. Otis is incredibly insecure and timid, which is made immediately apparent by the opening dream sequence. The town is eventually attacked by pirates, and you are told to shut off the Owl Temple, and in doing so, it would hopefully pull all the Sky Islands together, crushing the invading ships. But you later find out that this has already been turned off for years. Now it's up to you and a myriad team of misfits that you collect along the way to investigate powerful artifacts and find out what's truly going on. As I said, this isn't going to be a spoiler review, as this game truly deserves your attention, and the first playthrough is best experienced going in blind. So I'm purposely going very light on the story component. This game can be completed within 10 hours from start to finish, so it's not the longest game, but to me that's totally fine. I love games that are short, but the experience of playing them is rich. They don't overstay their welcome, and they leave you wanting more, and Owlboy certainly does. 10 hours I think is the perfect length for this game. There is no artificial game lengtheners. It's clear that you need to collect certain items for a certain purpose, again no spoilers, that has been made clear to you from the start of your play. There are also other things to do other than the main story, like collect Buccaneer coins by going through rings and collecting coin chests. What are these coins used for? You use them to buy trinkets. At the legendary Adventure Emporium, you can exchange your newly acquired cash for different trinkets, all of which have different buffs. Some increase your max health, some increase your range on certain weapons or attacks, and some increase flight speed. Others serve no purpose at all other than to look cute. Seriously, you can get hats in the game and they just make Otis wear a hat until you take a hit and it gets knocked off and you never see it again. I'm being completely serious. However, woven into the fairly straightforward story are tales of inadequacy, anxiety, and feeling like you're not good enough for the tasks ahead. Seeing Otis conquer his fears, stand up to enemies, and triumph with his friends is done in such a masterful way, and again, all without any voice acting. The story and storytelling in this game is simply amazing. However, I will get more into this in the emotional part of this review. Let's move on to the visuals. As soon as you start this game, you are immediately blown away with just how beautiful and intricate this world is. The whole game is set in this incredible pixel art, and I found myself on countless occasions just stopping to appreciate it. Grass blows in the wind, the water looks great coming out from waterfalls, and the game offers some of the most beautiful set pieces in gaming history in my opinion. This art style immediately drew me into the game, and the ever-changing landscapes and environments kept me in awe throughout my entire playthrough. This truly is one of the most beautiful games. Now the visuals are perfectly matched with the soundtrack of this game. This game is tied for the best video game soundtrack ever for me. It really is up there with Animal Crossing New Leaf. It's stunning, it's beautiful, it's emotional, it emphasizes and adds to every single thing on the screen of your playthrough. It heightens moments of tension, it accentuates sadness and amplifies your successes and triumphs. If it weren't for this perfect soundtrack, this game wouldn't hold as much of an impact as it does. There's really not much else to say other than it's perfect, and you just have to experience it for yourself. Now this game isn't all visuals and sound, no, you have to get into some fights. Now Owlboy isn't the most tenacious warrior, in fact he's quite weak. He really only has a wing attack which requires you to get very close to the enemies, which only makes you vulnerable to their attacks. Thankfully throughout the game, you will acquire new friends, all of whom have their own abilities that will help you in your playthrough. The first companion you'll unlock is Otis's best friend Getty. He is a quivering, rule-following coward who brings a small BB gun-like weapon. This is a great starting friend as he can hit most enemies at a decent distance, break through walls, and provide that extra level of support. The only thing his gun can't really break through is rock and steel. By getting this gun and a bit of extra distance between yourself and the enemies, you're able to start taking them out at a distance with ease. The next companion you'll unlock is Alphonse, once formerly an ally to the pirates, who had a change of mind as he was abandoned and left for dead by his teammates. Alphonse sees that Otis and Getty are fighting the good fight. He joins Otis and fast becomes one of the best allies that you pick up. He has a very powerful short-range shotgun-like weapon. It is a musket, but think of it as a shotgun. It's widespread and does more damage the closer you are. This musket also has a second ability, which is fire. Later in the story, you will come into areas with multiple vines and bushes that act as obstacles. Using Alphonse's gun, you're able to set these alight and open up new paths. The last companion you'll pick up on your way is Twig. Now when you're first introduced to Twig, he is a troublemaker. There is a little bit of a twist to Twig which I won't spoil for you, but underneath all his jokes and pranks lies a very emotional, vulnerable and sensitive character. It's actually quite surprising how emotional his story is. As he dresses like a spider, it's not hard to imagine what his abilities are based on. He has the ability to shoot web pellets that can slow or tangle your enemies. This leaves them trapped or stunned essentially where they are, so you have a larger window to attack. He can also grapple walls, which proves useful for tight escapes and traversal around the maps. And just a pro tip, Otis can't be damaged when Twig is grappling to a wall. so keep that in mind for certain bosses. Now all of these guys have such varying personalities, abilities, and are all extremely useful in their own way. They all have their own backstory, so from your very first introduction, you form an emotional bond with them. Some have come from neglect, some have come from unsupportive families, or are just simply misunderstood. But in their own way, they are all outcasts or underdogs, just like Otis. This is why the team dynamic works so well. Once you've unlocked Twig, your team of misfits is complete, and you're on your way to save the world. And it's at this point you have gotten to know everyone in the team. You know their origin, you've seen and experienced firsthand what their personalities are like and what their motivations are. Again, it's something you need to truly experience firsthand just to understand how impactful these scenes can be. Enemies in this game will vary wildly too, offering enough variety that no matter where you are in the game, there is enough change to prevent this game feeling boring. You're not just coming up against the same enemy over and over again. Each new enemy offers something new to learn, whether it's avoiding floating spikes, old gnome things that throw projectiles at you, fire-breathing lizards, snakes that come out of the walls. You need to pay attention to your enemy's attack patterns and also look for their weaknesses. And also keep in mind that some of these foes actually have multiple ways of being taken down, so don't be afraid to experiment a little bit to see which way is the most effective. Now there are also bosses in this game and they are an absolute highlight. There are a mixture of mini bosses and fully realized boss fights. However, most are fairly straightforward, but there are bosses toward the later game that really require you to focus in order to progress. My favorite boss fight in this game is the last one. I won't spoil what happens, but there is such a big build up leading up to this fight, and to my surprise has a very satisfying payoff. The boss fight combines everything you've learned along your playthrough. Every single person that you've picked up along the way is incorporated into this fight. So this requires players to recognize incoming attacks and make split-second decisions about which ally is going to be the most appropriate to use. It can be fairly challenging and stressful, but the relief and satisfaction you get when completing this boss fight feels incredible. The controls. There is really something to be said about this game's controls. You don't actually realize or understand how much is going on until you start breaking it down. You control Otis, who is always flying. It's a very vertical game, so you're always controlling his elevation. You're then bringing along a second person or your friend who you carry, and depending on who is quote unquote equipped, this gives you a variety of attacks and abilities. So on top of flying and controlling Otis's elevation, you also have to be aware of who you're carrying, what they do, and how far of a reach their abilities or attacks can stretch. On top of that, you also need to be able to aim their weapons, avoid enemy attacks, and clear the rooms. Thankfully, this game balances everything perfectly. The controls in this game are so tight and so calibrated that you know if you die, it's because of you. Each death can be contributed to a fault on your part rather than the game. There are some sections, especially later on in the game, where you need to give 110% focus as to what's going on, otherwise you will be easily overwhelmed. But the deaths never feel unfair. You can identify where you went wrong and try again. Moving on to the game's emotion. This game is surprisingly emotional, and it has an enormous amount of heart and moments that will make you feel all the feels. As you are introduced to Otis, you are also introduced to his insecurities. You sense that he feels he's inadequate, he is ridiculed, and instantly you feel sympathetic toward Otis. Within the first 5 minutes of the game, you witness Otis's dream where all his insecurities are laid out. Mysterious figures constantly mock him for being mute, for being inadequate, and for always being nervous. This makes the player care for Otis instantly, sympathizing with him, and I'm sure for some, it becomes very relatable. Once Otis wakes up and gets out into the village, you see that he's also being bullied by 2 other owls further playing into these insecurities. As a mute, Otis literally has no voice. However, given how he isn't seen as a great successor, he is constantly doubted and in a way has also lost his figurative voice within his own village. And seeing him triumph under all this pressure, it holds such a great message that even if you have any kind of disability or you're underestimated in any capacity, you can still achieve greatness. This acts as your motivation playing as Otis. You want to show the world, when it's in complete and utter dismay, that the quiet, underestimated, bullied mute was the only one who was able to save everyone. It is a complete underdog story, and the game pulls it off flawlessly. Otis could let these comments affect him, however he decides to ignore them. He goes off and fights his own fights, he recruits his own allies, and looks directly in the face of adversity. He charges into battle head on, taking on enemies that in all honesty, should flatten him in seconds. They're faster, they're stronger, but Otis doesn't care. He buckles up and gives it his all throughout the entire game. It truly is inspiring. The game can choke you up, and it makes you feel incredibly connected to the characters through its unique writing and character development. So by the time you're at the end game, you're so invested in this little team of misfits. Despite the game being entirely pixel art, the characters through facial expressions and body movements can convey a myriad of emotions to convey whatever they're feeling. So if you can't tell already, this has got to be one of my most favorite games of all time. It's basically available on anything: PS4, Switch, Xbox One, Windows, Linux, Mac, whatever. It's a very inexpensive game and it's an absolute delight to play. Please don't pass this up. It has amazing sound, it has amazing visuals, and it has an amazing story with incredible characters. Despite being made in 2016, this game still very much holds up today and will hold an everlasting impact over you. I'd like to thank you again for watching my review, and if you have made it this far, I would really appreciate a like on the video. It definitely helps out the channel. Let me know down in the comments below if you've played Owlboy, or after this review, are you thinking of picking it up? But that's it for another video, guys. Thank you so much again for watching. Take care and stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.